Greetings all, and welcome to Daily Pali Reading. Today we're continuing our series of translating into Pali, and we're actually going to tackle a famous saying of Jesus, one of Jesus's sayings found in the Gospel of John. So in a sense, we're not really going to translate from English into Pali. We'll actually look at the Greek, the Koine Greek that it comes from. But let's take a look here. We have the Greek, but let's look at the English. And so again, Jesus said to them, I am the light of the world. The one who follows me does not walk in darkness, but, you could say but he will have the light of life. Now, like I said, obviously this comes from the ancient Greek, and the Greek is what we'll pay a little more attention to when we translate, because that doesn't put us at as much of a distance. Plus, ancient Greek and Pali have a lot of similarities. Greek doesn't have as many cases, has 5 of the 8 cases. It does have an immense verbal system that Pali doesn't have, but that's not going to come up a whole lot right here. And anyway, I think this is interesting. Jesus, of course, is the most famous religious figure on the planet at this point. And I think it's interesting just for a number of reasons. It's good to always try to gain an active command of Pali by trying to put something into Pali, trying to express something in Pali, rather than reading it. This gives us a little bit more of a feel for the language, and I think it just, not being a neuroscientist, I think it creates different pathways in the brain, and it just helps us understand Pali more. But also, I think it's an interesting thought experiment to think about what would it be like? What would Jesus and the Buddha be able to talk to one another? Would it be so different that they wouldn't be able to understand each other? Would they be able to come to some sort of understanding? So that's that's kind of a couple of the reasons for doing this, and it's basically just in a spirit of fun to put this into Pali. So now one thing we have to do, and this didn't occur to me right away, because actually I thought about just doing the saying part, which I put in blue here. When we put this little section here, and Jesus said to them, notice, by the way, in Greek has a definite article. Pali, like Latin, does not. They have a definite article sometimes with names of people. We have to figure out how we're going to handle this word Yesūs. And I think the best way is to just treat it like a like this, Yesū. And as a matter of fact, I think we could go ahead and probably just make it a long U, Yesū. We'll go ahead. Yesū. Another thing to think about is that it wouldn't say a yasma, because I think that's reserved for monks specifically, like bhikkhu, a bhikkhu, not someone who's outside of, say, the Buddhist teaching. There might be some form of, like master, but we'll just leave it as this, Yesū. So this takes care of our subject, which is right here in Greek, but we'll put this in what I think is the Pali order. So Jesus, and then maybe for this Pālin un, this is literally again and so, in that order. Maybe puna caparaṃ is some sort of particle you might find in Pali prose. And so Jesus said again to them. Now, in Greek and in English, we have to use a preposition. In Greek, they put it in the dative case, and it's plural, speaking to more than one person. In Pali, especially if we well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you can say something someone. You don't have to say something to someone. So this can be right here. This would be the masculine accusative plural, them. By the way, I know I'll inevitably, even in a short passage like this, that I know I'll leave something out. So please let me know in the comments. To them. And then we find this phrase a lot, etadavoca. Jesus again said this to them. I think that's basically how it would get expressed. Won't talk a lot about the Greek here, but and I think this is more of like a Hebrew or a Semitic idiom. This, they put a participle at the end. He said this to them, saying, and maybe that helps mark off, quotes or something. What we'll have in Pali, and we don't want to forget, is that after this, we're going to have the direct speech, but we don't want to forget to end it with a T. And so that is going to tell us that everything that precedes and pretty much after this avoca is direct speech. And we'll also have to remember that this, if we have a word ending in a vowel before the T, it's going to have to be lengthened. So, okay, so I think that takes care of the first part. Now, that's not maybe the most interesting part, but that, I think this is how it would end up in Pali. And we'll follow suit here. We'll keep this in blue. So, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And actually, the English and the Greek line up pretty much exactly. This is ego. We know the word ego. And it's the same in Latin, by the way, the first person singular pronoun, nominative. I am tophos, the light, and this is like photo or photon. And then this is a genitive case here of the world, the cosmos. And cosmos means it's actually related to the word cosmetics. It's something well ordered, like I don't necessarily want to say pretty, but maybe even, I don't know if this is related to a word for decoration, along those lines. So the world is not just seen as like some random mass. It's seen as this kind of beautiful collection, perhaps. But anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But it's interesting in a way because we're going to find something in Pali that, or I should say, that's different and interesting. So we'll keep this in the Greek and English order, and then we'll put it, I think, in the Pali order. So Ahaṃ, this is the exact equivalent of ego. This is first person singular nominative, personal pronoun. Ahaṃ asmi. This is the first person singular present active indicative. The root is us. This is just from to be, probably cognate in some way with ėmi. So I am the light. And when we take this word light, just like here in Greek, it's actually in the nominative. The verb to be, we would expect, like in English, we use this word predicate nominative. So what's going to go on the other side of the verb to be is going to be in the nominative as well. And we're going to take this word light, āloko. And then of the world, we'll take the word for world, loka, and we'll put it in the genitive, lokassa. I am the light of the world. Now this is the Greek order and the English order. I have a feeling that what we would want to do, I don't know if I can move this and it'll, yeah, that works well. So we would probably want the verb at the end, and we would want the genitive to precede. Ahaṃ lokassa āloko asmi. And what I wanted to point out here is that the words for light and world are obviously related. They come from the same root here. And the reason for that is that the world is something that one can see, that's visible, that's manifest. So that's just kind of an interesting, or to me, it's pretty interesting. This doesn't happen in English. We have world and light are very different, come from very different roots, and likewise here, phos and cosmos come from very different roots. So I find that kind of fascinating, just these things that turn up when you kind of go into other languages. So, all right. So now we'll go on to the second part. Now, it's obviously this is a little longer, but we can break this down into 3 parts. One of them here has a comma. And by the way, if you look it up in the Latin, even though they have participles, follows really the English. They use a relative clause, the one who follows me. In the Greek, we have this definite article and we have a present active participle, ākoluthōn, ἐmoi, the one following me. In English, we tend to put that into, like I said, a relative clause. I think in Pali, we'll just leave it as a participle. Again, those of you who are actually very expert in Pali, you can let me know if this makes sense or not. And for the word to follow, I just kind of settled on Anugacchanto. Now this would be the third person singular present active indicative, to follow, and obviously it's anu and gacchati. To make this into the nominative, the masculine nominative singular participle, I think it's going to look like that, Anugacchanto. And then in the one who follows me, this is really just like in English. The one who follows me would be Anugacchanto me, the one following me. Now this would be, I think it's just, you would follow the accusative case. But this short form here can do sort of like triple, quadruple duty. But so I think that will cover this section, Anugacchanto me, the one who follows me, the one who follows, the one who, the one following me. And now let's look at the verb peripatesse. If you're familiar with Aristotle, the peripatetic, that was one of his nicknames because he walked around a lot when he lectured, apparently. That just means to wonder. So I took the word paribbhamati, to wonder. Yeah, I think that's a good way to deal with that. Walk or wonder. So the thing here is it's negated. Actually, it's kind of doubly negated in Greek, and we're not going to worry too much about this. In Greek, this is actually the aorist subjunctive, and probably means something like will never or certainly. But we'll just, I think in the Latin translation, they just kind of negate it. So, and we'll negate our verb like that. The one who follows me does not wonder. And then in Greek, like in English, they use a preposition here. Greek basically lost the locative case. It was kind of subsumed by the dative. There might be instances, I'm sure there are instances where it's still used, like you would have to understand the dative in a locative sense. But in this case, we find a participle just like in English, but in Pali, we do not need we don't require a preposition because we have the locative case. And I think now there's lots of words for darkness. I like this one, tame. And there's a reason for that. Let's first just put this in the proper case. Tame, to make it locative, would be tame. So in darkness does not walk, or does not maybe even fall into darkness. Now the reason I like this word is because it's connected to the three gunas of, we might say, Hindu thought, or of Indian thinking more generally. That includes like sattva, which is kind of pure, maybe associated with the color white. Tamas, which is at the opposite end, would be darkness and kind of chaos and impurity. In the middle, there's rajas, which is like passion and maybe the color red, maybe cognate with the Spanish roja. So, or rojo, I don't know Spanish. So, okay, so that's one reason I like that. It kind of connects us to this, this guna system. And then we just have to take this last little section. But he will have the light of life. HS zoīs. But, again, and this is the English here. Well, I translated the English, so that's why it follows. But he will have the light of life. In Pali, I don't think they would express it this way. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I have a feeling that for the Pali, and let's put that up here, maybe in brackets, we might say, but there will be or for him, or for that one, the light of life. I think that would be how they would express it. So we could go here and say, tassa, for that person, cha, this would be our but, our adversative use of cha, but for that person, and we'll put the verb at the end, we'll have, so we'll take the light of life, and we'll try now just to go ahead and put it in the Pali order. So we'll say life first, and I went ahead and I took this as the base word, bhava, which can mean state or existence. And in the genitive, bhavassa, āloko. But for him, the light of life, there will be, bhavissatī. Now there's one thing then that we have to do here, and it's just that thing I said before. Bhavissatī ends in a short I, and if we mark off the quotation with T, which is really like an iti, it's going to cause this I to lengthen. So bhavissatī. And I think that will give us the, I think this would more or less capture the sentiment. Now, there could be some other particles thrown in, Anugacchanto, me, something like that. I don't know. Other people could let me know. But this kind of gets at least the base meaning. And to me, the idea is, well, what would you make of this if you were used to the Buddha's teaching and you heard this? I am the light of the world. Obviously, light comes up a lot. āloko, upajjati, or udapadi. So that metaphor is used quite a bit. But I leave that to you, dear listener. I would be very happy to hear and very fascinated. And I would be even thankful to hear any comments you have regarding this. So on that note, peace.